Hello, everyone. It's Liz. Welcome to Wednesday. It's Prime Day, and today I'm here to give you some suggestions of what you can watch on Amazon Prime. I'm here live from the Derry Public Library, as you can see by the stacks, and whenever I'm here, I'll pick a little different location to broadcast from. Um, I cannot recommend the Prime movie that I watched last night, which was Bruno Mattei's Hell of the Living Dead, despite having a pretty good final kill. But yeah, for a number of reasons, can't recommend. But today I do have some good movies, including some new stuff that's on Prime. And the first is Seberg, which it stars Kirsten Stewart and is about actress Jean Seberg. If you know who she is, you've probably seen her in one of two movies. The first being Saint Joan, which is about Joan of Arc, which was one of her first features. And second, probably more famous, is the Godard film Breathless, where she played the female lead. And what people who don't know a lot about is she had a fairly tumultuous later life that unfortunately ended in suicide. She was also a big supporter of civil rights, of the Black Panthers, and she was actually monitored by the FBI's COINTELPRO program. They planted fake stories about her. They hounded her in between that and the press. She was essentially hounded to death. So I think this is a good chance for people to see, albeit fictionalized, the story behind someone whose private life isn't that well known today. I think she's just known as being the pretty girl in Breathless. And I will always take an opportunity to, say, hey, there is plenty of proof that Kirsten Stewart is a good actress. I think people give her a lot of flack for Twilight, same with Robert Pattinson. But as far as I'm concerned, the both of them paid their dues. They got a whole lot of money, and I think it's telling that for the most part, they've gone and just made independent movies and worked with actual auteur directors. So yeah, check that out. That is new on Prime. The second is a movie I actually didn't know about until a few years ago when I was listening to the fantastic podcast 80s All Over. And it's a film called Cutter's Way, and it stars Jeff Bridges and John Hurd. And this is why podcasts like that do deep dives into film history are important, because when people think about 80s films, they only think of the same 15, 20 movies. They don't think about some of these hidden gems. And this is a good kind of, I wouldn't call it noir, but it's a crime drama thriller. It's basically about two vets. One is falsely accused, and one gets way too involved with trying to solve the case. It's a great movie, great character pieces from both main actors. I mean, Jeff Bridges rarely gives a bad performance, and also good performance by Lisa Eichhorn as well. On to something that's probably going to be a bit happier than Cutter's Way or Seberg is Peter Bogdanovich's The Cat's Meow. Peter Bogdanovich is a filmmaker that started off great as a part of New Hollywood, had a couple of bombs, had a rough couple of years, unfortunately, very rough couple of years because one of his partners, Dorothy Stratton, was murdered. And then eventually started to make some better movies. And The Cat's Meow, which came out in the early aughts, is one of those movies. It's a really fun, it's almost a hangout movie. It's basically about a party that takes place on William Randolph Hearst's yacht. You have Eddie Izzard as Charlie Chaplin. You have Kirsten Dunst as Marion Davies. Joanna Lumley is also in it, or if you're an absolutely fabulous fan, she's great. I always love watching her. This is just a fun little movie. It's got a lot of atmosphere, a lot of personality. If you're a sucker for costume design, it's for you. If you're a Downton Abbey fan, this might be kind of a little adjacent type of recommendation. So if you are interested in stuff like that, I would watch The Cat's Meow. Up next is a movie by another director, I think, who can only be considered an auteur, Louis Brunel, and it's The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. This is a fairly interesting little film. It's basically a group of bourgeoisie friends who try to keep having dinner and keep getting interrupted. Brunel is a fairly surreal and experimental filmmaker, and I do like recommending this movie to people because it's an interesting movie to watch. Also, was nominated for Best Original Screenplay for the Oscars in the early, I think it was 1971, and Best Foreign Language Feature. Um, Up next, a movie that a lot of people probably know, starring an actor everyone knows, Witness, starring the no one else like him, Harrison Ford. If you want a good crime thriller that's not just boilerplate, Witness is great. Witness goes beyond just having a standard story and actually tries to inject character, inject real stakes, inject personal involvement and personal stakes into the crime. It's I would say it's probably one of the best, I would say, crime movies ever made. I think when people think of crime films, they think of stuff like The Godfather. But I would say on the other end of someone who's in law enforcement trying to protect someone, this is a great movie for that. And again, Harrison Ford is just a very good actor. I think he's known mostly for his Star Wars and Indiana Jones roles. But you watch movies like this, or movies like Working Girl, or even The Fugitive, I think people forget that he's actually a really good performer. So, if you've never seen Witness, take the time to watch it. Up next is definitely a hidden gem from 2007. And if you were in Concord in 2007 and went to the Red River Theater, you probably saw this movie. It was one of the first ones they got. The Son of Rambo, and that's Rambo with a W. It is a cute little British film about two kids kind of coming of age in early Thatcher England and kind of inspired a bit by First Blood. It's fun, it's charming. I can't recommend it enough. It's one of those, if you just want a nice watch that's not super heavy, Son of Rambo is a great watch. And also, if you watch stuff like The Maze Runner or Midsummer, or you've just seen him in a lot of other movies, young Will Poulter is in this. Now we're going to go with documentary, and this is kind of just continuing on my love of all things drag. It is a documentary called Drag Becomes Him, and starring Jinx Monsoon, or Jarek as his legal name is. So Jinx Monsoon is the winner of season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Spoiler alert, but they're on season 12 now. And it's basically why he does drag and why he likes to perform. And again, I think drag queens are becoming more mainstream and they're in the news with Drag Queen Story Time. And there are some misconceptions as to why people do drag and also what drag is. Drag is a very, very wide definition of performing. There's drag kings, there's drag queens, there's people who do sort of like what Grace Jones did, sort of androgyny stuff. But this is really just about Jarek's journey and why he liked performing, why he liked doing drag. And he's just a very sweet person. So you almost fall in love with him. And also, as Jinx Monsoon, he is a dynamite performer. One of my favorite quotes from him is he just said, "Well, I remember seeing Death Becomes Her when I was young and realizing, I think I just want to be Meryl Streep." Don't we all? Okay, so if I'm getting onto some horror movies now, so if y'all want to leave, you can leave. The first is Ann Biller's The Love Witch, and this is actually one where it would be a good recommendation if you're not a huge horror fan, but you like stylish movies and genre films. So this is a take off a lot of the late 60s, early 70s films, a lot of the Technicolor look. It's a lot of fun. It's basically a witch trying to cast a love spell, and it shows that Ann Biller is a very talented director and someone to watch. And I love the lead actress. She's a lot of fun. And again, I like the kind of the play up of the campy 60s aesthetic that they do. It's very self aware. But again, even if you're not the biggest fan of horror, I'm one of the biggest people to tell you horror is a wide genre as well. I would still say give this a shot and see if you like it. Next, we're going to go into foreign horror, this French film called Night Eats the World. If you are a zombie fan, but you're also kind of tired of zombie movies, this one might be one to watch because it does kind of try to reinvent and do something different with the genre, similar to what 28 Days Later did in the early aughts. Although, as a stickler, I do have to point out 20 Days Later is not a zombie movie, it is a plague movie, but the effect that it had, plague movies, zombie movies can be kind of similar. And 28 Days Later's style had a lasting effect on zombie films. But the final movie is one that I've been kind of joking about recommending for a while, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to treat myself and recommend it. That's right, I'm recommending Body Melt. It's exactly what it says on the tin. But if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I will also be the first person to say horror, even some of the more gory entries, is not just brainless violence. And this film, it's an Australian horror movie from the early 90s, is actually a very good satire and commentary on the wellness industry that was sort of taking hold in Australia at the time. The plot is this little cul-de-sac town is unknowing they're testing out these new diet pills, and the side effects are hallucinations and oh yeah, your body just melting. It's gross. It's definitely in the splatter category of horror films, but it is still a pretty good piece of satire. It's similar to if you liked Larry Cohen's The Stuff, you'll probably like this movie. It's a lot more gruesome than The Stuff. But again, I think people see something like Body Melt and they're like, oh, that's gross. There's no real, you know, substance to it. And to be fair, I kind of watched it because I'm like, Body Melt, huh? I wonder what this is going to be about. But I saw it, I'm like, oh, it's actually kind of a funny commentary on our diet culture and the wellness culture. So if you have the stomach for it, and you get past the gooey exterior, there's actually kind of a meaty center of this very, very gross Australian horror movie. So, hopefully, you'll check out one of these movies, and don't get mad if you check out Body Melt. I did warn you. And tomorrow, I will be back with what is on Hulu. Have a good day.